everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Madhur-Nain Webster. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in the integration of Eastern and Western philosophies for mental health. So, this is my brief introduction to you, Madhur, and I'll call you that.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
glad you gave me
please.
that option. So, and then there'll be at the end of this interview your full bio. But for now, the question that I love asking everyone, I always begin this way. Yes, sometimes I don't for some reason, but with you, I will. How would you introduce yourself? Who is Madhur in this very moment?
I would say that I am a woman on her journey of life. I love talking to people, connecting to people. I love creating. And as I work with people, I really am very active with doing my own work and being very present with my own journey so that I can be really authentic. And
Yes.
friendships and my children and my
Mm,
husband are really important to me. So it's also a big part of my life and who I am.
right. It's beautiful. I love how we talked about just now off record about creativity, how creative you are. And what comes to mind is I feel like the more we get to know ourselves, the true self, as we call it, our true nature, the more creative we become. It's almost like it frees the energy that wants to be here and express itself in different ways. And it's never judgmental, it's always very fluid. There's flow to it. It's really incredibly beautiful. So, yeah, thank you for being an expression of that through your work. And I want to mention, of course, from the get go, too, that you are the author of four books. The one that we will be talking today is this one. And I wanted to have it here actually this Stressless Brain, Reducing Stress and Anxiety Through the Power of Meditation and Psychology. So, talk to me about this. What was the main intention of writing your book, especially this one? Did you always see yourself as a writer, as an author, or this is something? Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've been in the mental health field for over 25 years. I've been in practice and I love learning. So, part of my own journey is I love learning. I take workshops, I do my own somatic work, I take trainings, I get certifications because that's like it helps me be a better therapist, it helps me be a better person. And one of my pet peeves in the past with books is like, I'll read a book and I'll be like, oh my God, they get me so well. They understand my problem. They understand me. And then I finish the book and I'm like, but I don't know how to change this, or I don't know. It doesn't tell you. It's confusing. Like, well, what do I
Yeah.
do? Or how do you do that? And so I would feel frustrated with that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to write my own book. And it took me many, many years to write the first book. I have some learning disabilities that really reared its ugly head during that journey. And I had to really process my own self-esteem issues. And this book came to light. I found this amazing editor I worked with. And so the book, I would say about half the book is really about information about what stress and anxiety and what causes it and how it impacts us. And then the other half of the book is really tools. So it really
Mm,
gives you tools of what to do. And that was really important to me. And I would say all the books that I've created, I have a new one coming out in the spring that are really around tools and giving you something to utilize and implement and bring into your life. So,
mm. Yes, it's beautiful work though. When there's something in me that's very devotional when it comes to when I come across anything that's trying to somehow help humanity to know their own depth, to
mhm.
heal precisely. It's really the idea healing comes to mind a lot. Um, how do you define healing these days, Mador?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is I have a saying that is, it's not what happens to us, it's how we make
Mm,
sense of it. So, when it
yeah.
comes to mental health and trauma and characteristics of our personality or viewpoints of life, all of that is impacted by how we view what happened to
Mm.
us. So healing
Yeah.
to me is actually more about being able to sit and reflect of how you interpret something has a huge impact on how it
Mhm.
makes you feel and what you do with it. So healing is
Mm.
the ability to stop and reframe an event, because we have the power to actually choose how we think of what happened to us. We also have the
Right.
power of how we think about the other person, but we can get
Mm.
locked in, no, this is true. And I've always challenged people, is it really true? Like, how do you know it's
Uh,
actually true? Because if you change how you think about it, all of a sudden the truth changes. And when that
right.
happens, how it impacts us with feelings
Mm.
and body and viewpoints, that changes. So I think of
Mm.
change more of, that's what I consider healing, is the ability to change more than the healing. Like some things will never go away. The scar
Right.
is always there, but how we feel about it and how we see it changes.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah, that's gosh. Yeah, that's very clear to me. I mean, I feel a billion percent the same way. So in my case, because I have my own experience with healing, a lot of trauma, it took a long time to really get to reframe those belief systems, in the way I perceived what happened to the body mind when I was a child. So, and I see people around me still, in my family, friends, they're still dwelling. Gosh, they're so, it's almost like they are living in the past. It feels like that they are not present at all. They're coming from the past. So, what is why does it happen? I'm wondering this. Why does it take so long for some of us? Is that something just for people like older people like me, 48? Are young people dealing better with this idea of reframing and seeing reality differently? So healing faster?
No.
Talk to me for a moment about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, this is when you can go looking at the journey through the spiritual practice, which is awareness, versus the
Mm,
like biology, which is the body, the mind, and the journey of development.
mm,
And the
yeah.
brain isn't, they used to say the brain's not developed until the early 20s. Now then they said the mid 20s, and now they're saying close to 30 the brain's not fully developed, the frontal lobe. And how the brain is developed is going to have a huge impact on how you process life. There's just no way around it.
Mm,
That being
mm,
said,
yeah.
the spectrum of
Yeah.
human being and human awareness is, like you meet little children who say very profound things or very empathetic, and then you meet children who aren't. But it doesn't mean they can't learn it. It doesn't mean it's not developed in the journey of their life. So, I mean, it is
Right.
interesting. The average age in psychotherapy that come to do their work tends to be older. Tends to be people
Mm.
in their mid to late 30s. I have a lot of clients right now in their 70s, which is really interesting.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
but I
Wow.
think that part of it is, I have a
Mm,
philosophy that there's two kinds of people walking through life. There's the person who believe life is happening to me. And so they take things very personally. They believe it's happening to them, that someone's doing it to them, that it's not fair, and they
right.
can get really caught in that storyline. The more we
Right.
build awareness, we can learn that life just happens. And so I often give the
Mm,
example of
mm,
someone cutting you off when you're driving, and
yeah.
people get frustrated with that. And I say to them, the person who cut you off on the road has no idea who you are, what color car you even have or make. They are in their own
Mm,
reality. Like, don't make a story about it, but it takes
mhm,
practice to be self aware.
mm,
Parents
yeah.
that are younger and parents that are older and having children, they're more likely to have a little bit more development and can teach that
Right.
to the child. But it really is a very personal journey, and it takes a lot of courage to pause and be like, did this really happen to me in the way that I think that someone did this to me in a meanness? Or are they, having their own struggles. There's a quote by Robin Williams of, you
Mm,
never know what struggle someone's having when you see them. So, if
right,
someone's rude to you in the store, maybe someone just passed away, or maybe they just got a really bad email, or maybe they have really bad indigestion. Like, you just don't know what's happening for another person.
right,
So,
right. It's so true. That is so, so true. And I'm wondering if spirituality helps. It has been my journey and has helped a lot from my own perspective, living with a mind and the brain that has changed to trauma, and then also the imprints of that in the body, the scars, and all that. So the understanding that I mean, the deepening of that truth that we are not the body mind, that we are awareness itself, unlimited awareness, basically the infinite, having the finite experience. So that really changed everything for this
mhm.
year. So is that something that, I mean, your book, I love I have to say, so the Stressless Brain, chapter 2, meditations, cultural and spiritual impact. So I made some notes here. I would love to hear from you. How do you navigate this realm of integrating spirituality to science, to psychology, and how it
Yeah.
works?
So, spirituality has been around since the beginning of time. And and it has a different definition for everyone. And I don't think there's one path that's the true path to awareness. It's about what works for us. Science, though, has in the last 50 years has done so much to support spirituality. So as spirituality has struggled because of religion and control and
Yeah,
money and power, like, it just happens, like, the bigger we get in popularity, we have to do so much more work to stay grounded. But a lot of people don't do
right,
that, and then it gets corrupt or goes sideways. Science is actually a tool that can help someone who doesn't have a spiritual background, to be an opening for them to look at why meditation helps us, what it does to our brain, what it does to our nervous system, what it does for the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So science now has become a doorway to help people come back to spirituality, where it has really
mm,
separated from their parents to them. And, some people
yeah,
think, oh, it's just so woo woo and it doesn't make sense. But the thing is, you kind of, science and research helps open the door, and then you just have to practice it. You got to try it. Try it on like a
right,
pair of running shoes and deciding, is this comfortable for me? Or maybe you change the running shoes to a different brand. If you try silent
yes.
meditation, oh my God, it's making me crazy. You try chanting meditation, it's just changing.
Mm, I love that
So,
suggestion. Yes. Try different shoes, different brands, whatever it
yeah,
takes.
right. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. And even though some people they still very much they push away the idea of spirituality as something it's not science, not a fact. So why should I believe in those things? So I don't really uh, my entire kind of understanding of spirituality is through experience. So especially recently, so I have to
Mhm.
experience in order to to know something, and that has been, of course, knowledge, knowing what I am and what we are, but then also practice, yeah, through meditation. That's a big one. It's really huge. And
Mhm.
I see a lot of people are open to meditation, so that's a wonderful thing, isn't it, Madhur?
Yeah.
We are
I mean,
getting
there's
there.
apps out there, and there's thousands and thousands of books. There's lots of, paths to meditation. And I think that meditation can be a tool that brings you to a connection of inner awareness, because it just slows
Right,
us down so that we can be more
right.
present. When we're more present,
Mm.
then we can actually, you were talking earlier about the stillness. And when there's
Oh yeah,
stillness, then you can reflect more, and we have choice. And when we're
yes,
always going and going and going, often there's an illusion of choice. We're just ping ponging to everything around us.
mm,
People choice, like, should I do this? Should I not? But we're not actually really in the process of what do I want to do, or what does this mean? What's the cause and
Mm,
effect?
mm,
It's like we act first and think
mm,
later, versus, and I think meditation helps to
mm,
slow us down, which
mm.
is science. Now, this is where science come in. Science shows that with meditation and slowing down the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response, it creates the parasympathetic
Right.
nervous system, which I call the pleasure response.
Mhm.
It's the calming, it's the presence,
Yeah.
and that helps our organs and glands. The thing about stress and anxiety
Yeah.
in our culture is our body doesn't know, oh, I'm just late for work and I'm getting every red light. The body, in response, and like you
Right.
got a little sweaty under your armpits, your mouth maybe is a little dry, your stomach's a little tight because you're like, oh my God, I've been late for work for the last 3 days. My boss is going to be upset with me. But our organs and glands think, oh my God, we're going to die. We're being chased by a tiger. We're being,
Right.
a tsunami is coming.
Right.
And so you're releasing cortisol, which causes weight gain, causes heart conditions, causes a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
And this is part of when we
Mm.
slow down and we bring the, like, oh, like we feel it, then that also helps the organs and glands relax and release the cortisol and the hormones that aren't helping us. So that's where science and
Mm. Yes.
supports why, like, what's happening when we do meditation and mindfulness practice.
Yes, that resonates a billion percent with me. The question that comes to mind is how what is the difference between when it comes to relaxing the brain and being more, let's say, the relaxation only. I won't even talk about presence. So some people believe that meditation versus watching TV, a good movie or reading a novel, anything that's
Mhm.
entertaining. So that could do that too. Some people feel. So what is talk? I would love to hear your perspective on this, like
Yeah.
meditation versus watching a movie, for example,
Yeah.
to slow down the brain.
Well, it does create a very big difference. So, watching a movie, even though you're sitting on the couch and you're relaxed, the colors in the screen, the sounds coming out of the TV, the images you're seeing, they're stimulating parts of your brain. And if it's a scary
Right.
scene or if it's a romantic scene, your body's having a physiological response to that, and it's external. The example
Right.
I often give,
Right.
actually, a few years ago when I
Right.
had COVID, I'm not a big TV watcher. I'm not anti TV, but I just don't watch a lot of TV. And I was in my room in
Right.
quarantine, and I was bored. And so I started watching some TV series. I started watching, and it was a funny one. It was something from Toronto,
Yeah.
a family. And I was just watching and watching. And I noticed I started having emotional responses with the characters over
Mm.
the different series. I was like what they call binge watching, which I never do. I was watching one
Yeah.
episode after another. And I started
Yes.
noticing after a few hours, I paused and I felt a little depressed, which is not my
Right.
nature. And I was laying there in bed and I was like, God, like, why am I feeling this way? This is so weird. And I realized I was feeling the emotions. I'm very sensitive by nature, but I was feeling the emotions of the characters in the show. I was invested in the characters or what was happening. I was liking, disliking. And is that
Right.
bad? No, it's entertainment. But when you do it for so long, like you binge watch, your body doesn't, it starts to disconnect from your own self and what's around you. You
Mm.
start separating. And then you also
Mm.
start thinking what's happening external is me. And so you're
Yes.
separating, but you're getting entangled.
Right.
Meditation it's about
Right.
being in a journey of learning, who am I in body, who am I in mind,
Mm.
who am I in
Mm.
emotions, who am I in story making, like, it allows us to pause
Yeah.
and actually see ourselves in third person, which is not dissociation. It's about looking at, oh, yesterday when I had this conversation with Susie and she said this and it made me feel this way. Do I really feel? You start to learn to become self-reflective. And then you
Mm.
have the choice, you have the power of choice. Wait a minute. I don't actually need to
Uh,
think that. That may not be true, because there's a difference between fact and fiction. And fact is what
yes.
facts happen. Fiction's how we interpret it. Meditation
Wow.
helps us to let go of fiction belief. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was
Yeah.
that helped, that explanation. It was a little long.
Yes. 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 It's very clear to me. Yes, because I love meditating in a sense of in that exactly what you said. The just being able to see the dynamics, how body, mind, emotions, all this are just parts of this which we call life. So it's important to know the difference, that we are not experience itself, we are experiencing something, but that doesn't mean it's what I am, without detaching, right, without
Hmm.
disconnecting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think the more we practice meditation, the more we learn to do that. And at
Hmm.
some point it just becomes so natural that coming from that place of awareness, that's when magic happens. From my point of view, it's like a miracle that you start seeing everything as one, so connected. Everything's not happening for a reason. It's just happening, like you
Hmm.
said. And then what happens is, from the human mind, curiosity is the main tool that I use. It
Hmm.
becomes very curious to know, oh, what is it, and in a fun way. So yes, I love your message. Not just your message, your work, and I know that's something that you have your own story, your own relationship with meditation too. And I love to know that you were actually already, in a way, born in an environment that helped, right, you to
Hmm.
connect with self and in meditation and spirituality, which is wonderful to me. That is not good karma only, but that is it's almost like a choiceless choice. You just kind of navigating this reality as life itself. And
Hmm.
it's truly beautiful to see that. And it's, unfortunately, sadly, it's rare. A lot of us come from chaos and then we try to find a way out of it. So, do you mind talking to me for a moment about your parents and in Kundalini yoga in meditation as
Hmm.
well?
Yes. So my parents were hippies and they were on the journey of trying to find their meaning in life. My mom was raised Catholic and my father was raised Episcopal. And especially my father's side of the family has a lineage of Episcopal ministers. So there was a lot of religion in both of their pasts in their family of origin. But it was the 60s and early 70s, and they were on the journey of finding, what's the meaning of life. They were challenging what they were raised with. And so they
Mm,
got involved in the Kundalini world and moved to Germany, which I was born in Holland and I grew up in Germany. I speak fluent German. And so I grew up in that environment. And this is actually when you were sharing a little bit about my past. Even though I was raised in it, I still challenged it and I still had to decide if I was going
mm,
to do this, practice meditation or not. And that's where, um, when I was an
right.
early therapist and I was studying, psychology and science, then I started being curious about what science was saying about meditation. This is over 25 years ago. And so by looking at the
Right.
science, it helped, even though I knew from experience that I felt more grounded and I was able to navigate emotional pain when I meditated, I was
Yeah.
curious about, well, what does it actually do for us? Like, because the Kundalini world is very woo
Mhm.
woo and very strange and has its own demons and so forth. And so it is about navigating what works for me. And so then with
Yeah.
psychology, I then was able to go back to some of the practices that I was raised with. And by bridging psychology, science, and meditation, I was able to create the path that felt more authentic for me.
Yes, that's very important, isn't it, Madhur, that we do that, that we know that we have that choice. For so long, I didn't believe that. I mean, for a period of time, doing all the spiritual practice that I engaged with, it felt like I was not making choices. That there's no really such a thing as choice as a choice. But now I understand that there is. Although it feels limited, though, it seems like we are able to, let's say, feel inspired by something, and then do some take action. But then the realization of that action, whatever we have in mind as a vision, then it's not up to us. It's something that it's almost like we need God's help. We need the divinity just to come in and help. Is that something? Do you feel like that too sometimes? That this sense of choice is kind of limited in a way when it comes to personal choice.
Um, yes and no. I
Or,
think choice is an illusion, but yet it's truth. And so, for
mm,
example,
mm,
like I'll use like, because of my line of work, if someone's really jealous about their partner or they're really depressed about something that happened in their life, a person can really feel locked in, like, I don't have a choice to not be depressed. Yet,
mm,
the
yeah,
more aware we
yeah,
become of, okay, wait a minute, if we break it down, how we feel is not by what somebody did to us. So this is where I
mm,
try to break it down. I have a saying in my waiting room that says, how you treat me is your
yeah,
karma, how I react is mine. And so if we're
mm,
depressed because somebody did
yeah,
something to us, if we're jealous because our partner, is messaging somebody, we don't know what it says, but we're jealous, we're making up a story. That's kind of the
mm,
crux of how we interpret is going to make us how we feel. So I'm going to kind of go backwards. So
right,
how we feel
yeah,
comes out of our
mm,
interpretation of what's around us, what happened. How we
mm,
interpret it
right, right,
comes from the mind. And the piece in between interpretation and the mind is what I call lenses. So all of us have lenses, and we have like, I taught a workshop years ago, and I literally put on like 7 pair of glasses. I wear glasses;
huh,
these are my computer glasses, but I wear regular
yeah,
glasses.
yeah,
And I literally put on
yeah,
7 pair of glasses, and I said, "We walk through life with all these lenses on.
mm,
One lens is my 4-year-old girl that got abandoned. One lens is the 12-year-old that got bullied at school. Another lens is when I had my period and nobody told me what
mm,
that was and I thought I was dying. Another lens is, and each of these lenses then impact how we look at the event. And then how we look at it
right,
creates how we feel. So when I
right,
work with people and you become more aware, you realize, oh, when I'm sad, I actually feel sometimes like a 5-year-old, and sometimes my sadness is 12, and sometimes my sadness is
right,
22, and
huh,
sometimes it's, I'm in my 50s.
huh,
So, I mean, there can be lots of different lenses of sadness, but all of those lenses, when you look at the event with all of them, it's distorted and we feel
yeah,
like we have no choice. But if you can
mm,
unpack the layers of the lenses and you can unpack how events have
mm, mm,
impacted how you look at life, and you can come to the wise adult that we are, like where you and I are right now, and the wise adult is less
yeah,
attached to what's happening.
mm,
But if we get hijacked by these parts of
right,
us, these lenses, then we don't know who's
right,
who's actually interpreting what's happening, and it can feel out of control. It can feel like, well, I can't help feeling this way, and it's like, well, you can. It's hard, but you can.
I love that. I love everything about it. You're very clear about how, yeah, the mind works in relation to the parts, right? Because this is really, it's really, I mean, this is real though, in this relative reality. It is real. So, Gosh, at some point I thought that, some people have this idea that awareness, which infinite, unlimited awareness is what we are, um, that played a role, that kind of did something or tried, it could correct something, at the level of the mind. But it seems like we cannot use, let's say, we cannot use spiritual medicine to heal an emotional wound. I noticed that we have to address each part at their own level. I did a lot of spiritual bypassing before, and that's how I know. I try to really, medicate, use the spiritual remedy to calm the mind, to kind of help with the belief systems and all that, emotions, and it didn't work. So it's fascinating to see how it's very humbling too, Madhur, I have to say, that we have to address each part in its own term, in its own world, in its own reality. It's like trying to drink, dream water
Hmm.
in here in this reality. It doesn't work. It won't satiate the thirst. So is that something that you I didn't read this in your book, but is that something that you are aware of? Do you have these conversations sometimes about spiritual bypassing,
Hmm. Oh
or
yeah. I
this is
mean,
something that you don't
no,
really?
I believe in that concept. I've seen it very active in the yoga world. There's a lot of spiritual
Yeah,
bypassing in religions and in
yeah,
all spiritual practices. Um, and so the thing is, I believe that our journey is never done until our last breath.
mm,
And
mm,
who's even
right,
to say after then? I don't know. And
yeah,
the minute
uh,
we think we are done with part of the issues we have in life,
mm,
it's going to show up another place. Um, you know,
wow,
in
yeah,
spiritual
yeah,
bypassing is, like religion and spiritual practice, whether it's yoga or meditation or Catholicism or Judaism or Hinduism, whichever one you pick, there
right,
is a certain part of, like, remember in the old days where people would walk around the village with their wares? If you eat this crow's,
mhm,
tongue, and it's going to
yeah,
cure your na 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 na. I mean, like, there's
poison,
modern versions of that still happening. And
yeah,
the bottom line is we always have to do the work.
mm,
And that
mm,
doesn't
mm,
mean that over time that it shifts and grows, and what used to be a trigger 20 years
yeah,
ago, like, is not going to be a trigger now, or it may be a trigger now. I tell people all the time, my clients, like, we're all stinky onions. We got lots of layers. And
yeah,
this comes from the Course of
yeah,
Miracles work, that everything you see around you
oh
is
yeah,
an opportunity of
mm,
growth.
mm,
Whether you were there in the past
mm,
and you worked on it, whether you're working on it right now, or you're going to work on it next year. So part of it, it's
mm,
about slowing down and staying in your lane. Stay in your lane. Don't go
right,
one up. Don't go one down. And it's a
mm,
constant journey.
mm,
I mean, I have to do this.
mm,
That's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I love learning. I love taking trainings. I love meeting
yeah,
different people. I love traveling, because it all allows me to be like, okay, wait a minute. Am I having some narrow thinking here? Am I going one up? Am I going one down? Is this reality? And sometimes I get
uh,
stuck, and then sometimes I'm just in the flow, and both is how it is, I think.
wow, I love that. I mean, I love everything about the way you see life from the perspective of your own experience and as a professional, of course, too. So yes, it 1,000,000,000% resonates with me. Everything that you said, um, both. It's almost like everything is it's doing its work and everything's right in a way. There's no such a thing as the wrong path to where we wanted to get, which is really that sense of peace, which is already here anyway. But yeah, I also resonate with this idea that we are never done, right? When it comes to this idea of purpose, you mentioned something like this in the chapter 12, meditations, culture and spiritual impact. You talk about recognizing the way that Kundalini would, it's really a great way of recognizing our own path and our own purpose in life. And then you also talked about the how the mind connected to the soul. When that happens, we are able to experience life with more lucidity, so clarity.
Mhm.
um, I would love to hear from you a bit more about this idea of purpose too. You know, we talk about choice, and then we do have a choice. So that's really wonderful to know. And now I'm a lot more in alignment with that. Before I used to think, I think it was easy. It might be another spiritual bypassing that everything was just flowing. I was just life itself. I had no choice here. But now it changed. Yeah, it's evolved. It's amazing how it really evolves. It's always unfolding. It's nothing really set. And it feels like this is the reason why this experience is fun, because it wouldn't be fun if everything was set, right? We knew
Mhm.
everything. So but when it comes to this idea of the having a purpose in life, like the way where you are now, does it feel like you live in the purpose of your life? And what is your perspective about purpose? Do we have one, many? Do we ever find it fully
Um,
in
I
essence?
yeah. I think some people find it and some people really struggle with purpose, and that can often come from
Mm,
our childhood experiences. If you didn't have parents who had purpose, then we can get kind of like it's like one foot in front of the other and a little bit of like just sheep in in a herd. Purpose
mm,
is
yeah.
really really important part of life because it influences self-esteem. It influences how we connect into flow of life. um, there's a lot there's the
Yeah,
work
yeah,
there's a book
uh-huh,
called the Art of Impossible by
yeah,
Stephen Cutler. It's a very good book, and he talks about the research
mm,
work from a gentleman from, I think, Poland, but I can't say his name. It's really long and difficult.
uh,
But he wrote a book about
yeah,
flow and did a lot of research, and flow and purpose, I think, are very aligned. The thing is that
mm,
purpose is like the difference
mm,
between career and a job, like purpose versus just living.
right,
If you have purpose and you have a career is just like a terminology
yeah,
I'm using. A job, you just kind of clock in, go through the motions, clock out, go home, go through the
right,
motions. And we are more ping ponging. Life is impacting us. Career and purpose, I'm just,
right,
again, you don't have to have a career. I'm just using that as like you're buying into what you're doing,
yeah,
and what you're doing is giving you good
mm,
feelings. It's challenging you. It's giving opportunities. That's
yeah,
like purpose opens all of those avenues. And people with purpose
mm,
tend to be happier individuals. I see this in my work. And versus people who are just
right,
literally a sheep in a herd following. And we start, when we're just following, we start losing ourselves and we give other people power versus our spouse, our boss,
mm,
strangers, and we're easily more picked, and we get lost. And then we look into like, someone help me find myself, and it's like nobody can find you but you. So purpose is really important, and
mm,
purpose
yes,
can be, something that you're doing in a career
yeah,
that you believe in. Purpose can be hobbies, like something you find really enjoyable. I mentioned earlier, I'm super into knitting since I've been an
right,
empty nester. Some people, love
yes,
running marathons. All of these are just different ways that give
yeah,
us in a drive to want to know more about something and then to deliver it to someone else. That is purpose.
wow, I never thought it that way. That's fresh. Yes. And then that ties in with the idea of choice too, right, Madhu? So thinking, believing that we don't have choice will lead to um, not having the sense of purpose because now
Yeah.
you believe that you're not choosing anything and you can let other people or whatever it is choose for you. Right.
Can I add
Yeah, that's
something?
a big one. A big one.
Can I?
Yes.
So, one thing that's really
Oh yeah.
important in the journey of finding purpose and doing the work, it's being willing to be uncomfortable. And I tell my son, my younger son who's 20, I say to
Mm,
him, anything worthwhile in life is hard work and
yeah.
sacrifice. And this is part of the problem in our culture right now is people don't like being
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But the reality is when we were all
Right.
birthed, rather it was through the vaginal canal or C-section, it was uncomfortable. We
Right.
had to go through that journey for our
Mm,
first breath, which is life. And it
mm,
hurts. Our lungs hurt when we take that oxygen
mm.
in. But yet, once you hear your
Ah,
parents' voice, and once you feel the warmth of their body, and once you get the cuddle, and you then you feel like you feel a sense of connection for a moment. And that's
mm,
the whole journey of life, having to go through something
yeah.
hard, rolling up our sleeves, self-reflecting, and doing the work. I have a saying
Mm,
that I tell people: when life is
yeah.
really hard, keep up because it will pass. When life is really wonderful,
Mm,
pause and enjoy it because this will pass just as well.
yes. Yes. Wow. That's beautiful and it's wise. It reminds me of Zen Buddhism. They usually they see life very much like that. Everything's passing, so don't really get too comfortable with anything. That's exactly it. I love the analogy about the baby, right? Yeah, getting it's uncomfortable, and you're right about that. I think I see that all the time. Yes, people wanting desperately to be comfortable all the time, and then they do a lot of the numbing, the distraction, going for from one thing to another, one pleasurable experience to another, actually getting things much worse by doing that. But yeah, it's really sad to see that reality. And what is your message when it comes to that for young people watching this video? What is the best way to get out of that this loop, this cycle of wanting to be comfortable all the time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the reality that it's not comfortable. When things are comfortable for too long, something happens in humans. We become complacent. Some people, I'll
Right.
use the analogy of
Right.
exercise. Like, we go to the gym every day and we eat healthy and we lose the weight we want to lose and we feel good. And then all of a sudden, over a period of time,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just going to skip today. It's okay. I'm going to have a hamburger. Not that the
Mm.
hamburger is bad, but if you have it every day, that's that complacency. When
Oh
things
yeah.
get easy, we get a little bit lazy. So this is where also
Mm.
purpose, when you like something and you
Uh-huh.
look for ways to keep learning the same thing, it forces us to be a little bit, make things a little hard all the time, which then keeps us in the momentum of growth. Um, you know, when I work with
Mm.
clients who
Yeah.
are parents,
Yeah.
I often encourage them
Yeah.
when the child is young,
Mm.
you want to expose them to learn different things, different sports, different creative outlets. And there's, of course, a big spectrum of pricing, like, depending on your demographic of income, that you can still expose your
Right.
children and give them opportunities. And you want to keep giving it to them so they learn how to be uncomfortable, but also how to master something, how to become really good at something. So I
Mm.
think that, we,
Mm.
when we as humans are learning something, oh, I can't do it, and we just stop, then it also creates a pattern where we do that in relationships, or we do that in our health, or we do that in the job we're
Mm.
at. Oh, it's just too hard. I don't want to do it anymore. But that's a very bird's eye
Right.
view versus an ant's eye view of like,
Yeah.
what's hard? Let's break it
Mm.
down. Let's look at all the parts. It's not all bad, but we want to be able to look at an
Mm.
ant's eye view and not just a bird's eye view of I don't like it, or it's too hard, or
Wow. Yes. Yes. So in ways, welcoming challenges and seeing as a challenge anyway, befriending challenges. I love that because that goes back to something that I believe with all my heart that is very playful to me. It's curiosity. When I see
Mhm.
something difficult, it's like, why is it difficult? And then I try to really. There's the funny thing is like curiosity leads to a place of playfulness, of joy. That's, I mean, I found that to be very much true. Do you see the connection too somehow, Madhu?
Um, I use the word curiosity a lot, but a little bit different. I do agree with what you said, that
Mhm.
curiosity can make things,
Yeah.
like you can see things in different ways. It's like the prism, like when you just shake it and look again, and you shake it and look again, it keeps changing. I often use the
Yes.
word curiosity
Yeah.
as it's an antidote to defensiveness. So if you're in a relationship with
Mm.
a spouse or a partner or your children or a family relative, and you find that they're being defensive
Uh,
with you,
uh,
curiosity is the antidote to
uh,
defensiveness. So instead of defending
mm,
yourself to
mm.
the defense, which is what our human nature is, our knee jerk reaction. What do you mean? I never do
Yeah.
that. I always, nah, that's being defensive to
Mhm.
defense. If somebody says something to you that's not true,
Yeah.
be curious. Hmm, I wonder, what did you mean
Mm.
by that? Oh, that's interesting. Could you give me an
Yeah.
example of when I did that? So, curiosity is a superpower
Yes.
if you
Mhm.
can pause and be curious about something. You might be surprised what the other person says to you. It may not be, remember the lenses, all those lenses? If we get defensive, we got a bunch of
That.
lenses. If we're curious, we're in the wise adult.
Oh, I love that too. I love that too. Right. The lens of curiosity, that means you are mature, you're an adult now. Yes, that's funny that you say that. So that helps with defensiveness. Um, from my experience, it has been two things. It becomes fun because opens up the possibilities. Okay, there's a lot of reasons why this is happening, so it's okay. I will explore them, and it becomes fun for the mind, for the brain. But then also something else happens when I become curious. Is I become very compassionate. When I see
Mm,
suffering, unnecessary suffering, a lot of pain in others, then I become curious to know more. But the feeling that arises, it's compassion. It's interesting. The more curious I
mm,
become towards somebody else's pain, the more empathetic I become.
mm,
It's interesting to see, and I love that. It welcomes like the heart in a way, instead of just trying to rationalize, the situation and ask a bunch of questions. It kind of, yeah, it kind of flows to the heart and then opens the
mm,
heart, and then now it's almost like a non-verbal type of a communication, and I'll give
mhm,
the person a hug or make them laugh somehow, make a joke. So I don't know if that ever happened to you, but that's yeah, it has been my exploration at this
mm.
time. It could change, who knows?
Yeah, I think curiosity, creativity, they're all, depending on what
Mm.
angle
Oh
you're
yeah.
looking at those words through in the situation, it can have a different an impact. But I do think they're positive lenses. They're positive
Right.
reframes of
Yeah.
situations. Those two concepts
Mm.
are less
Mm.
likely to get you stuck. They're expansive and open.
Right. Yes, that's it. Yeah. Thank you for saying that too. Yeah. Yeah. Positivity, open, right. So we're almost at the end. I want to
Yeah.
thank you again for your beautiful presence in this reality, through the work that you do, through the lens of clarity and maturity that you use all the time. From my experience today, it's really beautiful. So I want to mention, besides your books, so you have four books out there. So these are on Amazon, I believe. You have two, and then there's one on your website that it goes along, accompanies the Soul Self Workshop, and that is the
Hmm.
Soul Self Journal. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes,
Did
I
I
have.
see that right on your
Yes.
website? And
Yeah, so the Soul Self Workshop Journal is actually it's a journal that you can follow along to help you find all the lenses that you look at life through. So it goes through the
nice.
primary emotions, and then it has questions and meditations on how to uncover what your lens is around anger, the different ones, what your lenses are around sadness or shame. And so it's a workbook that you can download and then work along. I taught the workshop in 2022, maybe, or 2021. So those, yes, those are the books I have. And then I have another book coming out in the spring with Hatherleigh Press called Beyond the Pain.
Mm.
And it's about navigating grief and disappointment.
Ah,
And it has a 30 steps on how to do it.
wow. That sounds wonderful too. Come back. I want to
Yeah.
read that book too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful to me. Gosh, you see, it never ends, right? That positivity, that expansion, just by being curious and being you. It's just incredibly beautiful. This journey, this investigation, to what this is. So thank
Yeah.
you for that too. And I want to mention that you host workshops. You already mentioned that too: couples workshop, anxiety meditation workshop, self awareness workshops. And you have a beautiful shop meditations too. Lots of meditations on your website that anyone can are invited to not just look at them. They look beautiful. I love the covers too, but just also engage with them.
Yeah.
Meditations are by far, I think, is the only thing I can think that's might be more powerful than meditation is the knowledge of what we are, which is unconditioned presence, timeless awareness. But then again, meditation is necessary to deepen that understanding and kind of uh, living through the perfume of that
Yeah.
truth. So thank you so much for your beautiful invitation to all of
Yeah.
us.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really enjoyed being here and getting to know you more and having a great conversation.
Oh my God, I live for these things, Madhur. Thank you. So I want to
Thank
mention
you.
your website, madhurnain.com. That will be clickable on the website. Are you on social media as well? Any of the
Yes.
other
Yes,
platforms, Madhur?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube, and all my music is 3 minutes is always free, but it's on Spotify, on Apple. I'm probably the only Madhur-Nain out there that has the psychology and the meditation and such. So, but yeah.
Mm. So wonderful. I'll have those links there here too. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence, and we'll talk again. Bye for now,
Okay.
Madhur.